Imagine you are a German soldier in 1942. You're deep in Soviet territory. It's 2 a.m. The sky is pitch black. Suddenly, the steady hum of an air engine above you stops. There is no explosion, no roar of a jet, just a soft, terrifying whoosh, the sound of a broomstick sweeping through the air. Seconds later, the world around you erupts in fire. You never saw the plane. You never heard the engine. And if you survived, you'd tell your commanders about the Nachthexen, the Night Witches. They weren't elite commandos. They were teenagers and women in their early 20s. They flew planes made of plywood and canvas. They had no parachutes, no radios, and no radar. Yet, they became the most highly decorated female unit in the Soviet Air Force. This is the story of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. By late 1941, the Soviet Union was screaming for help. Hitler's Operation Barbarossa was tearing through the motherland.
Every man was at the front, and yet the line was failing.
Enter Marina Raskova. She was the Soviet Amelia Earhart, a celebrity navigator who began receiving thousands of letters from young women asking one thing: why can't we fight? Raskova used her direct line to Joseph Stalin to do the unthinkable. She convinced him to form 3 all-female air regiments. But the Soviet military establishment was far from welcoming. When the women arrived for training, they were treated as a joke. They were given hand-me-down men's uniforms, boots so large they had to stuff them with torn-up bedding just to keep them on. But the biggest insult? Their planes. They were assigned the Polikarpov Po-2. It was a 1920s crop duster. It was made of light wood and cotton fabric. It was slow. It was flammable. A single tracer bullet could turn the whole plane into a flying coffin.
The men in the Air Force called it a sewing machine. They thought these women would be home in a month. They were wrong.
The Night Witches knew their planes were death traps in a dogfight. So, they changed the rules. They flew only at night. 2 planes would act as decoys, drawing the German searchlights and anti-aircraft fire. While the Germans were distracted, the 3rd plane would break away. Here is the genius part. As they approached the target, the pilots would cut their engines. In total silence, they would glide over the German positions. The only sound the Germans heard was the wind against the plane's wire stays, a sound they said resembled broomsticks. Because the planes were made of wood, they were almost invisible to radar. Because they were so slow, they could actually maneuver tighter than the fast German Messerschmitts, which would stall if they tried to fly at the Po-2's low speeds. The Germans grew so frustrated and terrified that they spread a rumor. The Soviet government was giving these women special pills that gave them the night vision of a cat. The Nazi High Command issued a decree. Any German pilot who shot down a night witch was automatically awarded the Iron Cross. But the magic came at a horrific price. Because the planes were so light, they couldn't carry much. Each plane could only hold 2 bombs at a time. This meant the women had to fly 8, 10, or even 18 missions in a single night. They would fly back, land, reload while the engine was still hot, and take off again. They flew in sub-zero temperatures. In the open cockpits, their skin would freeze to their instruments. If they touched their planes with bare hands, they would pull the skin right off. And remember, they flew without parachutes. To save weight for more bombs, they left the parachutes behind. If your plane caught fire, you went down with it. In one night, known as the Black Night for the regiment, the Germans realized they could use flares to light up the sky. 4 planes were lost in minutes. The women in the other planes had to watch their best friends burn to death in the air, unable to help, and then continue their bombing run. By the end of the war, the 588th had flown over 30,000 missions. They had dropped 23,000 tons of bombs on the Nazi invaders. They produced 23 heroes of the Soviet Union. But when the Great Victory Parade was held in Moscow in 1945, the Night Witches weren't there. Why? Because their planes, the sewing machines that had terrified the Third Reich, were deemed too slow for a prestigious parade. After the war, the regiment was disbanded. The women were told to go back to being wives, sisters, and factory workers. For decades, the world forgot that the most effective psychological unit of World War II was powered by teenage girls in oversized boots. History is often written by the victors, and usually it's written by the men. But the wind over the Russian steppes still carries the ghost of a whistling broomstick.
The Night Witches proved that power isn't about having the fastest engine or the biggest gun.
It's about the courage to cut the engine, glide into the dark, and do what everyone says is impossible. Next time you use your Wi-Fi or look at a map of Europe, remember the girls in the plywood planes. They didn't just fly, they changed the world.
If you enjoyed this story of forgotten history, hit the like button and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, which unsung hero should we cover next?
I'm Past Q Media, and thanks for watching.